Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining our breakout session, both online and on site. Today we're going to talk about ways of properly, correctly choosing the right ERP system at the right time, and of course making it become a successful ERP project altogether. As a speakers, we have Katarina Vigodová, who has 6 years of ERP experience, and she's a certified NetSuite administrator, and her background is in finance, statistics, economics, right? Yeah. And myself, I've been working with ERP systems of various types and sizes for around 15 years, and I'm a certified NetSuite ERP consultant and administrator, so feel free to scan those barcodes if you want to connect with us. Now let's start. I would like to start with a question to the audience, and by the way, let's make the session really interactive. Any questions are welcome. That's why we make this kind of sessions. So what do you think the numbers on the screen represent? Again, according to Gartner, but just to give you a tip like this, 55 to 75. Successful projects. Good. Any other options? Any other answers? Well, according to Gartner, actually, up to 75% of projects fail to achieve their scope, their goal, or miss the initial goal the way it was conceptually built, right? So it's really an impressively not good number, right? And it's really important to consider the common failure reasons. There can be a multitude of those. Let's look at them, on a one-by-one basis. So first of all is the internal, let's say, disagreement on the scope. Every line of business, every department kind of pulling the scope towards their side, or disagreeing on how things should be implemented and when. Poor requirements analysis and documentation. This is one other common reason of failure, right? Because then, you cannot properly pass on the information in the correct way to those who need it in order to understand what they have to do about the project. Obviously, wrong ERP vendor, and by that I mean system, right? Vendors in ERP, those who create those softwares, and obviously another reason may be a wrongly chosen implementation partner. Scope and budget should be in sync, and that should be kind of aligned already at the business case stage, at least. And of course, bad training and end user adoption can also ruin quite a lot the project, because then the users don't know what they have to do without. And of course, counting, we have way more other reasons. I just summarized a few of them. Now, when approaching the topic of a new ERP system, that can obviously mean a lot of change to the entire organization, and a lot of change management has to happen. There are some key considerations one would like or would want to consider to have, right? In order to kind of ensure they are doing it the right way and at the right time and with the right people. So first of all, the needs and the scope. And here probably it's a good thing to answer some questions. Do I really need it? Because it can look like it's a very trendy thing, like everyone has an ERP system. I have a business, so I should also have one. Well, do I really need it today? Maybe, I don't know, an accounting tool with some Excel does the job, and I should focus on maybe increasing my pipeline and generating more revenue, and then whenever the complexity is kind of growing to be difficult to manage, then maybe I'm ready, right? Why would I need it? First of all, where's my key challenges that I want to solve, right? Not everything all at once. And obviously when? What's the realistic time frame within which I can do that? And then, of course, looking at the key areas with the greatest benefits, Of course, everything may benefit from automation, but we need to prioritize things and really look into what is the biggest area that we would like to address with the digital system in our company. We need to be aligned with our strategy, and here I talk not only about the business but also the IT strategy. Some companies like to have segmented software landscape, so an app for everything basically. Others are looking for consolidating as much as possible within one system to manage it in one single place. So this also has to be taken into account. Also at this inception points, it's a good thing to also kind of roughly prioritize the needs and kind of look at approximated timeline. Okay, should we consider it in a year, or should we already start looking around and talking to potential suppliers and assessing systems? Now, a logical next step in this chain would be to document a business case. Of course, if it's a startup or it's a small scale-up business, a business case may look pretty simple, right? Or it can get pretty formal document with a lot of sign-offs and detail analysis. But obviously, probably most of you know what is the purpose of a business case document, and it allows you to easily get the green light from all the decision takers, because you then describe basically what's the value of the product and benefit versus the cost. We would always need a team because that's a team game, and Katarina will expand on this topic. So I'm not gonna go in that area, but of course we need to be cautious about whether we have the right resources in place in order to initiate the project and even make it a reality. Now, as far as the business requirements themselves are concerned, it's always advisable to focus on what and not necessarily how, because a lot of companies that have been doing business in a certain way, they're looking for a system to do the same processes in the same way, right? But you would rather look into what you want to achieve. Maybe I want to achieve a smooth approval process of, let's say, a procurement transaction flow, rather than focusing on nitty-gritty details like buttons and forms and who needs to do how, because I'm doing it currently in a certain way, probably because my current software kind of binds me into that. Now, obviously, the requirements have to be gathered, and there are many techniques to do that. Business process mapping helps a lot. It's a graphical mapping of those processes with the actors, and there are really tens of different standards and ways of methodologies of capturing those. Prioritization, documentation of requirements, and of course consideration of leading practices is a very good thing not to forget, because it's very easy to okay, I want this, I want that, and you start and you end up with a huge list of requirements. Then you prioritize, you end up prioritizing 80% out of them. They are very important, and but then that's really a too complex project that you can take, let's say, in a phase one. So sometimes it's a good thing to maybe a little bit step back and consider some leading practices. Of course, when you meet let's say, the software, for example, NetSuite has a lot of built-in leading practices, how other businesses are doing that process. You may end up in a compromise. Let's say, okay, I will not do it exactly the way I do it today, but I will get it out of the box, or literally out of the box, already available, and then I can add additional tweaks later on. So this is also part of that prioritization. Speaking about requirements gathering and documentation, a lot can help. A proper partner can help you with a lot of these things, even in the inception period, even before preparing the business case, RFIs, RFPs, or also a consulting company can offer these services for you. But basically, this kind of ABCs, these are pretty needed, because otherwise you kind of don't know what you want, and that's not a very good sign. Master data, or data management, all in all. Very often we are involved in projects where we already have quite a few systems managing some sort of data, marketing automation, CRM, right, HR systems. a lot of data spins between these systems, sometimes similar data. Customers here, customers there, customers in somebody's Excel, and so on. Now, this master data needs to be understood. Where do I manage my customers? Where do I manage my vendors? How do I manage my items? And so on and so forth. Naturally, if we are talking about a multi-system landscape, naturally we will define what are the systems of record, because I really need to document and understand that that system will be the one where customers, let's say, will be created initially, and from there we will propagate the data as needed to the ERP, as needed to any other systems that we may need customers in. This allows us to avoid, messy integrations, data being looped back and forth, and like, let's say I create a customer in a CRM system, then it ends up in the ERP, but then, an accountant in the ERP can edit the customer, and the change may propagate back or may not propagate. So how do we control that? And if we have a third, let's say, component, a third system, then it's kind of very easily can get out of control. This is also a very good exercise to do. Maybe not at the very beginning, but already in the requirements gathering. That really helps a lot, even partners to understand what they have to do and what they are dealing with. And of course, the data strategy reporting, we discuss a lot about this in our projects. We want to understand, and we need to understand how you want to look at the data. We start with the end result, basically, rather than, okay, what fields do you need? That's not the correct way of approaching this task, because like what I'm interested in, I want to understand how you look at your business, how you analyze the profitability of a revenue stream, and naturally out of those we will get the needed dimensions, the needed fields, and additional master data that we need to make sure we have in our system, so you get your reports right from the very beginning. And then, of course, we have the vendor selection, basically the system. And that's a very important step, right? After we know what we are looking for in terms of requirements and integrations, even if at a high level, we have some sort of a budget aligned with the stakeholders. We have some sort of a timeline. Let's look around for a system. Now, these things can obviously happen in parallel, but I'm just like putting them in a sort of an order. Now, the first thing I would mention is, of course, considering the product fit for your specific business. There are many businesses, obviously, lots of industries. Make sure the system that you are considering, I'm not saying choosing now, but considering, has the needed verticals, as we call them in NetSuite, right? Basically, it can support you whether you are, I don't know, a financial company offering some financial services, or you are a manufacturer or a distributor, right? Having totally different requirements when it comes to operations. Then, of course, the technology, the scalability of that software. I mean, the old on-premise setup, it's still valid approach. It depends on the use cases. Some customers that, I don't know, have a huge volume of people passing by, let's say in an amusement park that has lots of tourniquets and stuff, they need real-time sensor information integrated to, let's say, the billing system, because you scan your bracelet when you buy a lemonade, and they already know, you have to pay for that at the exit. Those kind of systems which process real-time a lot of data, they would most likely stay within an on-premise. Now, an ERP obviously can stay in the cloud because it doesn't have to necessarily account for that lemonade in that very second. But within the technology area, why, of course, modern SaaS business, it's a preferred option, because you just don't get all that hustle with the hardware and infrastructure and integrations and backups and people maintaining all of those. The next one also with this technology area is obviously the platform. So you want a system that lets you freely build reports, ask questions, get answers out of that system. The system that will eventually be able to be adapted to your processes and not the other way around. The one that can handle integration properly. And obviously, NetSuite being a true cloud solution constantly updates, so all of those setups and customizations, they continue to work. Licensing can be really confusing in the ERP world. I mean, I've seen quite a few licensed versions, and I must admit it's really sometimes confusing for the end business that talks to, let's say, several ERP providers to really make sure they compare apples with apples. I mean, you will get 5 quotes from 5 different software providers, but then, I mean, do you know that they have included exactly the same stack of functionality? You can count users easily, but when it comes to functionality, modules and stuff, it can get pretty confusing. So make sure the software that you're choosing has a clear, or at least those who are providing it can clearly explain what is the functionality behind what is on the, let's say, the quote, right? So what are the modules? And in NetSuite case, it's a pretty straightforward structure. Partner selection, I would say, as important as the vendor, maybe even more important, because a good partner will eventually find solutions to your needs in one system or another. So first of all, of course, the partner expertise in the industry you're in. If it's a product industry, if it's a manufacturing, you would want to have a partner that understands the business, not just knows the system inside out, but yeah, just tell me how you want it to work. Because you would also expect maybe some advices during the project on how to handle certain processes. Of course, scale of the partner. Most of the companies we see today, they are looking to, or at least they have scaling ambitions, and you need to make sure that the partner can also support that magnitude at which the business is planning to grow. Obviously, the reputation of the partner is very important, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to consider a partner that has certified staff. So the consulting team that works on the projects has to be certified in the fields of the expertise that they are representing. Louder. Okay. But I'm almost done. Yeah. So basically, then, though these areas are of course not all of them. There are way many. I just didn't want to overcrowd the slide, but these are of the most paramount importance in order to get the right solution into your project with the right partner, of course. Now, once you get inside the projects, once you start the project, here I would like to welcome my colleague Katarina to continue talking about what happens next and how to make that a success. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? It's very nice to see you today. Okay, good. I'll try. Okay. Yeah, maybe Emmy, if you can figure out the air conditioning, but I'll try to speak how I promise. So, nice to see you on site and online. Hi, guys. Hope you are having I have a little bit challenge because they forbid me to move away from the microphone, so I need to stick here. So if I start walking, just send me back. So it's very nice to see you all today. I believe you all have a reason or some curiosity why you chose this session. And so let's have a look at it. Before we go further, Andrei mentioned my background in statistics. One thing I learned in statistics, apart from many others, is that there is beauty in simplicity. Because in statistics, when you look at the formula behind any statistical method that would help you evaluate data, it almost makes you cry like a good movie. Because half of the symbols you haven't seen before in your life, and it looks extremely complex, almost like a rocket science. But when you break it down, it's actually standing on very simple principles. And I find that in all our life, with whatever we do. So in my presentation today, I will try to keep it simple. We will be talking about a couple of principles which I believe are simple, however, they may not be easy. Don't mix up those two things. So You've been through a process evaluating what to choose, what to implement, what are your needs. Congratulations, you chose Staria and NetSuite. So have a look, how do we make it into a successful project? I'll just get the entire picture here. We all want to have a successful project, but what does that mean in the first place? Because it can mean very different things to many different people. Just take an example. My boss was sitting here with us a couple of minutes ago. I know she would consider this presentation a success if at least half of you is still awake when I finish. However, if you are not, I have a good sleep story to sell, and that's some profit that I consider that a success. So you can see how just different perspective can switch what a success means. So why are you implementing an ERP? Why? Have you grown internationally and now you need to get quick consolidation to see how you are really doing? You want to have a cloud solution, you are growing, you want to unify your processes because it's a time to do so. There are different goals or different meanings what a success means. And it's very, very important to understand that when you walk into a project and keep a focus on that guiding principle, because you will be facing dozens of decisions daily in an ERP implementation, and you need something to guide you in those decisions. So knowing what it is and what is my goal out of this will help you make decisions through the entire implementations. So let's say we understand what we would consider a successful implementation. Let's say we are doing it because we want to unify our processes. So when we know that, and now I just can't overclick, and when we know that, we need to drive that. So what does driving success means? There is a couple of things that I will mention that I believe is very important to be aware of before even walking into a project. And something that I take as my personal mission in whatever project or relationship you walk into is aligned expectations, to be all on the same page, because we know what we consider success. Does your partner know it, that is going to implement it for you, so you know where to drive the discussions? Do you know what you expect, what they are going to ask you, how much energy they are going to ask you for? Unless you have aligned expectations, there are going to be bumps on the road. There still will be some, but the more you align, the less you will encounter during an implementation. So aligned expectations is something that is a building stone for success, I would call it. But what are those expectations? So what you can expect when you walk into an ERP implementation? First one, expect effort and commit to it. So it is a project, but you know those projects when you order some construction work at home, for example, you want a new pool. So like you go through a catalog, oh yeah, I like that one, then they come, they dig it, they do it, you are drinking coffee. It's not like that in an ERP implementation. You can't be drinking coffee while doing some work together with us, because it is a two teams job. I will get into a bit more detail on that one. So really expect some effort because it's needed on an ERP implementation. It's your software, it needs to work for you. So you need to give it something in the beginning. Best practices, there is so many implementations that have been done in industries, and based on that we have best practices. So what does works best for the most? Why don't we use it as an inspiration for our decisions? Because every business is unique, every implementation is unique, but there are some directions, some rules that it's good to consider when you are growing, when you are changing, when you still have a place to change and implement changes. So consider best practices. Also change management. I mean, it's a massive change in a company. You are implementing something that will eventually drive many of your processes. Many people will use it. So let's handle it with change management. Let's make sure that people are aware, people are ready to use it, and they understand why we are doing it in the first place. So they get on board. So proper change management, there's definitely a place for it. And user adoption. I really like this one. I'll talk a little bit more about what to expect and how to get ready, because you can get into a point in an implementation that, yeah, I like that, please go and implement that, it will work like that, I've seen it, it's nice. You go live and you need to touch it, you need to process it, you need to work with it, you need to know where is what. And that's not the first time you should be touching the system. So get used to it, get your hands dirty, work with the system as soon as possible. So while you are forming it, you can make informed decisions. And once you are live, it's not a stranger to you. It's a well-trusted tool you are getting. So those are a couple of things. Let's talk about people power. So I've already mentioned that this is not a pool project where we can just drink coffee and enjoy how it's being shaped up. Implementation is a two teams job. And I also call it, or usually say that it's like a translation effort. Because our consultants know what NetSuite can do. They can configure it, they know all the modules, they know the technology behind it, but you know your business. And now we need to translate all that together. What are your needs and how NetSuite is going to handle them? So ultimately, at first, this is a translation project, and we need to end up with a solution. So I simplified a lot something that we used once we walk into a project in our implementations. This is a basic structure that you should expect going into implementation. So we have a steering group with sponsors who will help you to make sure that you have all the resources and the time that you need. And then you should have two best buddies, project managers on each side. We have I'll use our example. So we have a project manager from our side who is going to drive deadlines, the order of the steps that need to be taken. But we need someone on your side to help us schedule the workshops, make sure things are getting done, knowing who can do what, so they effectively assign them to a task. Unless you don't have that, you are using a lot of time and effort on inefficiency in a project. That person doesn't necessarily need to be a project manager by a job. Just need to be someone who can organize things on your side. So we have a PM and PM. And then imagine you go into a mid-sized finance implementation. So we are talking finance, consolidation, then you are talking sales process, procurement process, maybe some inventory handling. In majority, there is not a single person who would understand all the processes in a way that they can make decisions on the implementations. So you need subject matter experts. I'm an expert in sales. I know how our sales process needs to be. I have the authority to make decisions on these processes. So you need area experts to get involved in an implementation. So that's kind of it. It's simple, isn't it? It's just not so easy to keep it during the project. But this is something that one of the expectations to have when walking into a project. What is expected from me as a customer during an implementation? If we go to, this is my favorite, these are our principles or philosophy. And we use it because in any implementation or daily work, you need to make dozens of decisions. And you cannot give a people manual for a million questions they can encounter, but you can give them guiding principles and what we believe for and how do we do our work. First one in an implementation is we can if you can. What does it mean? Usually we get pressure on timeline. We need to do this fast, or how fast can this be done? Well, we can do it fast if you can. And we are now back to this is a two teams job. If we do something, we need your counterpart in it. If we configure some customization that you needed, we need you to test it and confirm it works so we can deploy it. Every action is a two teams job. So the moment you have some time restrictions, the questions you should be asking is, can I dedicate to this time that I'm asking for? Because for the partner, they'll just throw in manpower, consultants that will help you to be so fast. But can you? And that's a very good question to ask yourself when you are setting up a timeline before walking into a project. what they need from me, how many hours a week do they need from me, and can I give it? You run that sanity check before setting up a timeline, it's gonna save you a lot of trouble. So that's the first principle that we already start to discuss in pre-sale, because it's important to set up reasonable expectations and be aligned on them. Next one, the fact that we can doesn't mean that we should. And now I'm referring to the possibilities on customizing NetSuite. You can customize it as much as you like. There is a lot you can do. But should you? Do you really need to do it? There are considerations. First, performance. Secondly, do you really need a customization, or is it the time and place to consider your business process change when you are growing? And okay, this is what you need today. Is it gonna work for you a year from now? So that leads me to another one, that when you walk into an implementation with us, we won't be a yes man. You ask for something, we won't just run and do it without thinking about it. You ask us for a customization or a certain module evaluation. We will not say, yeah, sure, we'll go and do it. No, we will ask you, okay, please tell us what is your business case, why you need it, how would you like to use it, and we will give you options. And we try at least go with the holy trinity of options that will give you and explain, okay, this is a full customization you are asking for. These are an ups and downs you are getting with it. This is a halfway option, or this is what we think would be smart based on our experience from other implementations that we've seen. So what you can expect doing an implementation with us is not just blindly agreeing to everything, but sometimes questioning your requests, because what we are trying to build is a sustainable platform for you to grow on. So that's one of our things. We won't be a yes man. And the last one, it's your system, so own it. It's very easy to get detached or not touch the system during the implementation, because first you are in the workshops, then you are reviewing BRD, and now suddenly UAT testing comes and you really need to go in, log in and do some processes and transactions and print something out and test it. And it's very, very difficult if that's the first time you are getting your hands on. And that gets me back to driving success with user adoption. Get your users at least informed and aware, a little bit trained on NetSuite before you throw them to do some testing. Because also they are going to be much more ready for go live, which means much more smoother go live, more happy users because they are under less pressure. So user adoption is a very big thing, and not being afraid is like, yes, consultants are configuring it, but it's your system, so own it. Don't be afraid. There is a reason why we have Sandbox, so we can play around. So that's our guiding principles, and this is something that we are explaining or we are putting on a table already from a sales process, because we want to have a successful project. We want you to know what to expect if you walk into a project with us. And all of that considered, there is one, behind all that, there is one big principle as well, that use this opportunity to establish a good building stone. Think ahead, think forward. I'm investing into an ERP implementation. I'm changing my business processes maybe. I'm doing it for some goal. Okay, am I doing it so it works today? Or am I considering what are my plans 2-5 years from now? So I establish a good building stone and avoid rework. Does it work for me today? 2 years, 5 years from now? Let's consider that so you plan and build efficiently. Because you can build a lot on NetSuite. So that's one of the principles to keep in mind going through implementation. And if we just summarize it, what to keep in mind when you walk into an implementation. So embrace change. Don't be afraid from a change. If it looks complex, break it down into pieces that are simple to comprehend and look at. Then be pragmatic. Are you asking for a customization just out of comfort, or is there anything that we can really change and it makes sense, even though it may be uncomfortable short time? And then get your hands dirty. They'll give you the account, they give you the training portal access, dive in it, get your hands dirty, it's your system. And with that, I will end and give space for questions. Do we have any?
Maybe let's start with the audience if you have any questions. And then we will have to proceed to, we have something from the chat, but maybe live first. But we have like 10 minutes until the main program continues. So let's try to keep this schedule. Yeah. And let the audience speak.
Don't worry, this is a good time for you because there is no stupid question, but there can be a stupid answer. So the pressure is on us.
Definitely.
Yes?
Well,
Please.
let's start.
So,
Sorry, wondering how does Staria deal with such cases to be proactive and to avoid these failures? For example, if our team is being slow in replying and you can see already that they are falling behind our goal, are you speaking with the steering group from our team and giving heads up if you don't submit this, then you will be able to
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I know I have to repeat the question. Thank you, Emmy. So the question was how Staria prevents this or is proactive from having an implementation to fail, or how do we sort out when the customer team is falling behind? What do we do? I'll separate the question into two. First thing is that what we do is everything that you guys saw today, I go, as from a delivery from a PS site, I sneak into a sales process and I put those on the table. I go into the sales process and I'm the one not selling, but making sure we sell right and we know what to expect. So we start already in the beginning. That's the first thing. And the second thing, when it happens what you described, that we are not replying on time, we are behind some deadlines, what do we do? Funny enough, some of the best feedback our project managers got was, thank you for being so pushy, you really saved us. So you can really expect a push from our side, and we are the guardian of the deadlines, if I say so. So we set up a deadline, we see you are not delivering, and it's like, okay, we see you are behind the deadline. If you don't give it to us 5 days from now, we are raising a risk on a timeline. So we will say the hard truth, we will be the guardian of the deadlines, and we will raise these things to you. That ties me back to we can if you can. Thank you for the question.
Anything else? No, let's maybe take one from the chat. How can we determine if an ERP system is a good fit for our industry?
So the question was, how can we determine if an ERP system is a good fit for the industry we operate, right? Okay, good. Yeah, as I was saying, it's a very good question. It's a very valid question because, like a lot of systems, they try to look like they are something which they, in fact, may not be that well of. Yeah, so analyze the availability of the verticals, right? Referenceable customers. If let's say we talk about manufacturing, I don't know, industrial manufacturing. Look if that respective product has referenceable customers that are operating in this industry. A partner can greatly help with that. I mean, at least as far as Staria is concerned and NetSuite, anytime we talk to our prospective customers, we would always make sure we show and explain them and present them what kind of references there are for the product and what are the key strengths of NetSuite when it comes to a certain vertical. So in short, there are of course specialized systems for different industries, different processes. There is no one system that will always do everything best, but it's very important also to consider the adaptability of the system. So the way it can configure the systems to work exactly for that specific, not only industry, but also the process. Because I can be a distributor of electronics, or I can be a distributor in the food and beverage industry, and that's a totally different requirement set behind it. So yeah. And thanks. Good question.
I think we have time for maybe a couple quick questions, then we could continue with the main program. If nobody else wants to ask,
I have one. Okay.
Please.
Data management, or let's say data migration, that seems to be a tricky one. We are in the middle of the project at the moment. Yeah, with you. So yeah, data migration, data cleansing, data mapping, etc. So how often that work is, let's say, underestimated? So let's say the most common challenges, issues, problems that you have faced when it comes to data migration, data cleansing, mapping.
I'll
You
take
take
that
it.
one. Data migration is the most underestimated effort in a project, usually on a customer side. And maybe I'll revert the question backwards, and how could have we signaled it more? Because it is the heavy lifting in a project. An approach is that we start discussing data strategy in analyze phase in the beginning of a project, so we see how much there is, we agree what kind of data, how cleaned, how summarized, when do we need to bring in. The problem that we usually face, and which can be solved, is that a customer doesn't realize how much effort it really is until they start to work on data migration. A good way to have a test run is do a test runs in UAT, and that's what we strongly suggest. Just go on and import a couple of customers, couple of sales orders. You will see what it means, and it will give you a much better informed idea what to expect when we getting live. But at the same time, it is a heavy lifting, it requires a lot of manpower, and we have many situations when we see that that's something where we need manpower to keep the deadlines. We can support you with manpower on data migration. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks.
all right. I think we need to wrap up. I just heard that the main stage is ready to continue. So, of course, I would think that you are available for any further questions.
Absolutely.
In the future as well.
Absolutely, you
Feel
can find
free.
us close to any coffee. Thank you for being here today, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you.